record this screen. Um, so cool. Well, I know, and I think somebody brought it up, and it was this thing about a midterm, right? And I was like, I have to do a midterm. Well, here was the thing I noticed when I was thinking about this and thinking about timing and stuff like this. Um, Specifically, it has to do with this here. If I look at like the requirements for the class, I can see, yeah, we have homework, and yes, we know we need to do labs, and those should be weighted pretty heavy because that's like you do something. So that's why they're 35%. But then there's this little guy here who says midterm. So you have to do a midterm because otherwise, if you try and do the averages of the other grades, they're weighted too heavily. So then also the other thing with the midterm is it's supposed to assess, what do we know so far? Right. The only thing we've talked about so far is really classes. And so I will put together a review for a midterm, and you'll see what it is. And what I'm planning on doing, because if I looked at the old schedule, it says the 19th. Well, if you recall, we're supposed to come back the 19th. This class doesn't meet on Mondays, so we would have it on Tuesday. So that gives us 2 weeks to prepare for it. And then you got to think we're also not here on the 16th either. So it's like we only have this class Thursday and then next Tuesday. And then we come back physically on the 20th for this course. So, and I can tell you right now, what is it going to be on? No surprise, it's going to be on classes. And so just generally what I would anticipate for you to do is we would take the whole time. It would just be a hands-on thing. I'd like to throw concept questions on there only because that will help offset your grade if you didn't do so well in the programming piece. So that way it's like, I can at least study for this part of hands-on, like, I don't know, I'll try my best, kind of thing. But at least you can guarantee that, hey, I can study for those questions. I know what they are. These are the things I just need to know about. I hope. We're not even doing concept questions. What am I talking about? What's the homework for this class then? You guys any?
It was just generic questions about the chapters.
Oh,
that's what homework 2 was.
Yeah, it was like a little mini quiz.
Okay, well, I'm glad somebody's keeping track of that. Was that in Google? That was in Microsoft Forms, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
It was through Teams.
It was I think the Forms app in Teams.
Okay, cool. All right, well, at least I did something with that. Yeah, and it had been a while since I don't want to say it's been a while since I made this course, but it was a while ago. It was, I think, my first one I did over the summer, so I had forgotten about it. Okay, so good. So we're covered there in the homework. That'll be on the midterm, and then, like I said, there'll be a programming piece. I'll have a review. We'll do the review on next Tuesday in class. We'll work on it. We'll talk about it. It'll be a working class to prepare for that midterm. And like I said, what is it going to be? It's going to be like you need to develop everything kind of from scratch. And that would be, you need to have an implementation file, you need to have a specification file, and then you need to have some driver program that uses class. And you'll have to do the whole thing. Now, it'll be pretty lightweight, right? It'll be, it's not going to be too heavy, but again, I'll, so that way you can do it in an hour. What is this class? An hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes or something. Okay. So sorry about that. Sorry to ruin your day. But again, I just don't see any other way. If we don't have a midterm, how in the world can we make up 20% of the overall grade? And the other thing too, honestly, it has to assess your knowledge. And so you have to make a decision. If you take the midterm and it's like you look at it and it's a foreign language, and you're like, I don't even know, and you bomb it, then you can make a decision on what I want to do with the class. And I don't want to spend too much time on that today, but again, it's just, and I mentioned this before, this course is really kind of getting into the more heavier part of what program is about. And so if you're like, this sucks, let's talk, let's have an advising meeting and figure out what are some different options. Okay, so that's all that stuff. And then looking ahead, might as well talk about it. We have to really talk about all these other things, which is really kind of the main part of the course, which is concurrency, scheduling, memory management, software and hardware, concurrent code, communicates with workers, which is just parent-child processes really. And you have to know about what deadlock and starvation is, and use structured blocks. We'll talk about all that stuff. You'll have to implement it, and you'll be actually implementing it in C. Which, by the way, I just read an article today. C is the most popular programming language for this month, for this year. So good job, C.
Probably because everyone's indoors and they can just learn it.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that. I guess Java's 2 and then Python's 3. But and then C++, and then following right behind that is C++, C#, and JavaScript. So I think that's rounding off the top 7 or something. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the class. And so what do we want to do this class? Well, here's what I thought. I didn't get everyone's. I didn't get the lab that was due last Monday graded for every team, because not that I want to go into a bunch of my personal problems, because they're not really personal problems. It's just I'm just having a lot of I was getting like 49 emails a day, and it's like all of them are 49 like I have to do something with, and it's just pretty heavy, because I realized, and actually I was talking with somebody last night about this. It's just that, not being in person, being in class, I guess it's kind of hard. And I know from the 205 class in the spring last semester, a lot of people kind of checked out, and kind of seeing that. So I don't know. I'm trying to do what I can. So what does that have to do with anything? It has to do with that I didn't get your stuff graded, and I'm not just lazy. I got most of them graded. I think I have one more team left. And again, that's from last week. Right? Because, yeah, there was an assignment that was due last night, and that was the whole skills thing, right? And again, I didn't even get a chance to look at that. I don't know when I can get a chance to look at that. I'm hoping to look at that soon. I will have everything graded and back to you about classes definitely before our midterm, before that, our quote fall break. So that way you'll, have more information to study. So what I really want to do today and Thursday is really drill on this class business. Okay, I really want us to work with it, because I think we need a little bit more work. So that's what I want to do today. I want to make sure you get your program done and turned in on time. I want you to start early, like now, working on it. Yeah, so maybe I give an outline, kind of some, I don't want to say pseudocode, but some general organizational stuff to help us get going here. And so that's what I'm going to do for a little bit at any rate, is I'm going to run through what I have so you can kind of see. I was going to just format my output a little bit, because it's kind of like not very good. Okay, that should work. That should look pretty good now. But then it's like, whatever, it's fine. Okay, so let's look at that, see what it's about. Okay, Now, you know what? I can't really show you that. So this is mod 2, lab 2. Okay, there we go. So this is what it looks like. You know, and it kind of reads like a story problem. And the more I'm thinking about it, what I'm looking at, like, you know, I don't want to say, you have to kind of look at these. Like, I should have probably defined these a little bit better, like between damage and attack, because then it's like attack. Does that really mean like an integer value? And it really should just be like the type of attack, I guess. So again, it should be probably a string. So I should have probably defined those a little bit better, but again, I'm kind of leaving that up to you, and we can talk about that if you want. Just kind of the specifications here, and create new objects from classes you create. The menu should display it be able to display at any time. I think the big thing here is right here. So your program will prompt the user for how many of each type of transformer that will have. So like right out of the gate, I'm not saying that you should be able to create new ones on the fly. Like, you know, with the sales, the division thing, you prompted the user for the number, and then you created the number of objects you needed. Great. That's the same approach. We don't need a menu option to support creating more than what they specified. And that'll make sense once I go through the program and run it at least once, so you can see how that's going to look. Yeah. Create new objects from the classes you create. So again, just one time. Running option, and anytime they can exit. Okay. So we have to create a base class that's going to at least have this stuff in it. All right. And then we're going to have constructors and to initialize some appropriate access or mutator functions. Now, I'm trying to see here. At least this component of your class must be implemented within a separate implementation file. So even, you know, so at least one of the classes you have to go through and say for the animal class that you have a implementation file and a specification file. For me, for the vehicle class, I just went ahead and did everything in line. Let's see what else is in here that's interesting. This is the interesting piece down here. And I can provide you with the logic of it. I won't give you the answer, if you will, but at least I can give you like, hey, this is what you should do. And I mentioned it briefly, but again, today, starting today and Thursday and for this week, we really need to focus on this. So again, I'm not going to start anything new really for the midterm, right? Before the midterm, I'm not going to start anything new because I think that's just based on what I've seen with the assignments and discussions with people. I think we really have to spend some time here. And then after the midterm, we'll do all that other fun stuff, which is actually pretty cool. So, continue to prompt. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this is supposed to look like. All right. So this is what I did. Let's make sure here. Okay. So this is kind of what it'll look like. So I run this program and it says, welcome to your transformer collection. How many transformer vehicles? Okay, so again, I got to keep in mind I have vehicles and animals. So let's just do one vehicle because they're not that interesting. But then we'll do, well, we could do 3 animals. I don't even think they call them animals, but at any rate. So now I know how many transformers total I have. I have 4. And so If I hit display here, this should probably display nothing, right? So I have total animal transformers is 0, total vehicle transformers is 0. So I haven't added any in the inventory yet, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit add, and then it's going to say, okay, are you creating an A or a V? So let's do the easy one first, which is vehicle. So now it's going to say, all right, well, what type is it? Is it a good guy or bad guy? That's the difference between the Autobot and the Decepticon. So we'll make a good guy, and we'll call him, of course, Optimus Prime. I mean, we have to. And the movement. Now, right, this is like movement if we're thinking like, are you moving 50 miles an hour or 50 paces or something like that? I'm just, right, 65. Which movement should be land, sea, or air. So I already messed up my program. My example here. So, okay, so what's the damage? This should be an integer variable. So let's say it's 100. And then what type of vehicle is it going to be? Again, that's going to be, of course, he's a semi. What's his weapon? I think he's got a big laser beam. What's his skill? I don't know. His skill is he's a leader. Yeah. Okay, so cool. So we entered one in, even though we messed up the movement. But hey, we'll get that right on the next one. So then, you should be able to hit display, and then hopefully you see whatever one you added in your vehicle transformer number. Here's what it is. Here's the statistics, right? And then I'm going to go through and do this for the other interesting ones, which are for the animals, right? So this is where it gets interesting, because at this point in my program, while I'm running through it, again, I highly encourage you, once you get it developed, even as you're developing it, step through it, put breakpoints in there, make sure you're going into the right member functions and stuff is getting updated correctly, okay? So then I'm going to make this, so at this point, when I make a decision like Autobot, it'll automatically, my program's going to tell me that, well, down here, right, if it's an Autobot, the group member variable should automatically be Dinobot. Like, I don't need to put that in there, right? Because I know based on the fact that it is a good guy, and meaning it's an Autobot, the group member should be Dinobot, because the bad guys, if it's a Decepticon, is a Predacon. Okay, so what's the name of this? I don't know any of the Autobot animals, so let's just say this one, his name is Turkey. His movement, right? I mean, it would make sense. He's air. And then what's his damage? He's pretty weak, so it's like 4. And then the type of animal, if it's a turkey, I would imagine it is, can't think of the general classification for a flightless bird. Too bad I don't know how to spell flightless. Flight. That's his type of animal. What's his attack? Text things. Because his attack, see, I don't know. And again, it's up to you. Is attack really the damage? No, that's how he attacks, right? He text things. Okay. Now, notice again, the whole cool thing about this is I didn't put in the fact that he was supposed to be a Dinobot, but if I go to display now, right, the group membership that he is in, or the group membership, he's a Dinobot. Fantastic. That is maybe, again, like I said, how we were dealing with our static member variable in the last lab, and that was like kind of complicated to keep track of. Remember, we looked at the example of the trees and all that stuff. This would again be maybe something that's a little bit more complicated. And then conversely here, if I did add, and just to make sure it works, if I did animal and then I said Decepticon and then I said his name is Baddie and the movement is, I don't know, he goes on land, and then his damage is like 6, and the type of animal he is a I don't know, he's a slug, and his attack is slime. Okay, now again, I didn't put in there what kind of group membership he has, but if I hit display, this baddie should be a Predacon, right? Okay, so that's kind of the general flow. That's all you have to implement, and then of course you should just be able to exit. Now, ideally we should build in something to like save this output to some kind of a file and then read it back in. I mean, that would be great if we had a lot of time to do stuff. Certainly you can build that in, then you could have some kind of like repository for this. But again, that's not the intent of the assignment. The intent of the assignment is to understand how to work with classes more.
I have a question.
Sure thing.
So is it supposed to be that the user can create an infinite amount of transformers?
That's a good point, because I didn't build that logic in, and neither did the instructions have that, which says, okay, you know what? You've reached your maximum limit of transformers. You can't do anything else. So yeah, I don't want to.
I'm thinking like a vector or something, if that's the case.
You don't need to build that in. Again, the goal here is just more work with classes. If you want to build in that additional functionality, I mean, that's fantastic. Not requirement. Yeah, I mean, because so what happens is if I just keep adding them in, I get a Stack Overflow error, because it's like, hey, you only have this much memory allocated and you're trying to do this much. So I know that's important to consider. I mean, as long as we're aware of it, but I want to make this assignment doable. And again, like I said, based on just like what I've been grading so far, I'm not going to put those requirements on the assignment. But I mean, good question. Oh yeah, well, you should build in there some error checking and so we should at least check that, make sure it works. Because one of the things if we're looking at error checking, like prompt until, I don't know, I think it's like a integer value or something. Where's that at? Let's see, it would be here. Like even if you set the transformer type, like let's say I messed up on that, like, and I didn't put an A or a D. So something like this could happen. So let's say I added a new transformer and I was like, okay, are you creating an animal or a vehicle? I mean, let's just do an animal. Here, if I'm like, I don't know, right? You must input an A or a D, right? So, stuff like this, we should put in there. Transform, so stuff like that. I mean, you should build in some error checking that whatever you think's good. But I guess I don't really even specify that, except maybe one time. Let's see. Oh, damage must be a positive number. So there's just like 2 things for validation. So that's it. Okay. So again, what I want to kind of do is lay out at least kind of a game plan, at least for the main driver program. Okay. Because what I'm afraid is going to happen is if we don't have, what I don't want to have is like our main program be 100 miles long. You know, we want to use, let me just open, oh, I can't even open that. Well, yeah, I can, it's fine. Let me just clean this up real quick. Because all I really need is a file. I think I have too many things open. Oh my gosh, come on, buddy. All right. All right, so, you know, like, where do we start with this? Oh, because that's what I noticed. Like, if you did make a function, again, we want to get into the habit of making function prototypes. If for this program, I would say you definitely need to have at least one function. I would say two. One for like displaying transferring, you know, information about these transformers, and then one for adding information about these transformers. So like have two main functions there. So I would say you know, include all this stuff, but two functions. And moreover, two function prototypes at the get-go, right? So again, that way, you know, because if your functions, you know, your first one's 90 lines of code, and then your main starts at line 91. Not that it's difficult for me to find it, but again, we just want to get in the habit of putting this stuff at the top. And if you think about the progression of these courses, it's kind of always been that way, where, okay, well, we put everything in there and then we try and start breaking it apart. Because we eventually have to get to, you know, a fully designed program, if you will. So at any rate, two function prototypes at the top. I'm recommending one for add, one for adding. And another for displaying. Okay. And then what are we going to have? We have to include both of our classes, right? I'm not going to go over that stuff. But just like we did with the sales business, you know, if I'm going to dynamically allocate, you know, some objects, right? Then, you know, I need to have some pointers. And like I said, I mentioned that in everybody's, yeah. And again, so I think everyone's got the idea on that. So you're going to dynamically allocate, really you're going to create some pointers, create 2 pointers, one for each subclass that you're going to create. And what else do I want to do? Yeah. Well, again, I think this is, I'm hoping people are doing this, and I think I'm seeing this, which is go through and just make comments on stuff you want to do first. And like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to do the other thing. I think it's helpful if you do that. So, you know, the first thing, and I mean, get as basic and fundamental as you want, because approaching it this way is a heck of a lot easier than trying to build something from the scratch. You know, we're getting to the point where we really can't do that because these programs are getting pretty robust. So at any rate, I'm just going to display a message, display kind of a welcome message, right? And then down here, and again, this is going to be in main, so I should probably start saying some stuff about that. display a welcome message, and then I want to keep going. All right, loop until exit, and loop until exit. What am I going to do? I'm going to read an input is really what it's going to be, right? So loop until exit, and again, maybe you want to do this knowing that that's inside the loop. You know, what are you going to do? You're going to display a menu. Then you're going to go through, you're going to read an input. And check for valid input. So I need to do all that in my loop. And then really after this, then I need to really deallocate, right, or delete. Because I'm going to have, just like with sales, you know, I'm going to have, you know, I'm going to have arrays so I can keep track of how many objects I have. Same idea there. Deallocate my arrays for new objects created. And shoot, you know what? I don't think I looked for that. Well, I didn't even grade the sales one yet. So what am I talking about? Okay. So again, now if you use new, you need to use delete, right? So I'll be looking for that whenever I get to grading that. Yeah, because that was this week's assignment. All right. Then what? Well, after I've done that, that should really be the end of May. So again, nice, neat, short, sweet, you know, I don't want to say not much going out there, but this is just really the orchestrator of like what should happen. Then certainly I'm going to be calling some other functions, specifically the ones I set up here, you know, for adding and displaying transformers. So I'm going to go through those really quick. And so in add transformers. Well, maybe I want to do that. All right, so then what am I going to do in here? You know, this is where you're going to be prompting for, you know, what are you creating? More input validation. So all that stuff is going to be prompt really for input. So this is where that really takes place, right? So up here is going to be, you know, what type of transformers are you creating? You know, A or D, that kind of stuff, checking for valid input. And then based on if they select A or D, you're going to call these member functions of respective classes up here, right? That's what you're going to be doing up here. So I should probably put that up there. The objects at this point. Okay, then I'm going to say add to transformers. And actually, these aren't going to be my respective member functions. These are just going to be respective functions for objects. Within those functions down here, these are going to call my specific classes, right? Because at this point, I'm not going to know. This is just really, hey, Autobot Decepticon, right? And then I have to come down here, Autobot Decepticon, to decide I'm going to use, right, for adding the transform, I have to know what it is. Is it an A or a D? Then I'm going to keep going. Prompt for input, and then this is where I populate my objects. Populate my objects with information read in. Yep. And oh, that's a lot of work, guys. Then what? Pretty vague, but that's what we want to do. And then I'm going to say display. Hopefully that one won't be as bad. But just like with adding, it's kind of like display is going to be somewhat similar. I mean, you're going to be accessing arrays. And like Michaela said, I mean, if you want to use vectors and you can just keep popping to the end and you don't even have to worry about it. I mean, you can do that. We didn't really spend a lot of time on it between those two types of data. But whatever you want to do. All right, so I'm in transformers for displaying. And then what am I going to work on here? It's just outputs, just output the inventory though. That's pretty much it. And we know from, well, and I don't know because I haven't graded yet, but we know from the division sales of that sales program, right? How do we cycle through? We use that number of items as, you know, a counter, if you will. This is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have to keep track of that every time I add a new one in. So I'm going to probably be passing around that counter. You know, and I think even on the last one, you know, if you wanted to use global variables, well, you don't really need to if you do this here. If you implement it here, displaying and adding in this main function, you don't need to use global variables. But again, let me know if you have questions as you're working along. That's what this week's really for. All right, so that's kind of a general game plan, you know, and then we have to talk about, well, what do you need to do for inside each of the classes? Okay, so let's do that. Let's see, I'll just make a new file. And let's just make a text file. All right, so then what? Well, now we got to talk about, I need to have two, well, how many do I really need? I need 3 specification files, and those 3 you could do inline for transformers. And so again, I'll just write this stuff down. Well, I mean, you can look at the instructions, but I just need 3 separate class files, specification. One, specifically the animal, needs to be an implementation file too. So we could at least look at the transformer class and see what we want to do for that. Now, you're going to need to, or want to, do this. And I think Tony talks about it in the book, because you might run into problems with as many class files, because how do you determine which one gets accessed first and which one gets linked first? So to avoid that, what you will do, or what you can do, is this thing called forward declaration. And all you do is just say the class name. So what I mean by that is, if I'm in, let's say this is the specification file for transformers, okay? And if I'm in here and I want to do what's again called forward declaration, where I need to just acknowledge the fact that there are going to be classes created that are going to be animal and vehicle, this is how I do it, right? I just say class vehicle, class animal. It's similar to what we've done, or what we're accustomed to with function prototypes, right? You're just kind of saying that, hey, you know what? At some point, you're going to see this. You're just acknowledging it. I can't think of the specific error off the top of my head if you don't do this. But again, like I said, when it gets to linking the files together, if I have a whole bunch of different files, I need to say that, hey, if you're coming in here and defining transformer and you come across this thing called vehicle, just know that it's defined somewhere else. But again, just make sure you include that. And that's why I want to bring this up so you don't run into problems. And then, I mean, you're on your merry way. After this point, you just define your class. It's going to have private and public. What's going to be the difference between private and public? For private, you're going to have some stuff. For public, you're going to have some stuff. And I did see, at least in some of your other assignments, people were making, member variables public, because then you don't have to worry about, and I think maybe some of that. But again, I should just have, everything should be private as far as my variables that I need, and then accessors or mutators to update those that are publicly available. But again, these are just going to be the things like the name, the type of transformer it is, and so on. And there should be another one. So those are all things that are characteristics that are shared between both vehicles and animal classes. Name, type, movement, damage. Again, we said default constructor, a deconstructor, yeah. No, in the instructions, hold on, let me see here. With a default constructor and a constructor. So we just need a default constructor that really doesn't do anything. And then we're going to have another constructor that's going to initialize. So when I call it, if I have, all of my attributes specified there, my properties, then that will get created. So you actually will have two constructors. And again, one doesn't do anything. And do we really need it? The answer is probably no, but the instructions say so. That's what I have in here. I just want us to be able to do it. So I'll have two constructors. And I'll need a mutator for everything. So I'll need a mutator for setting the name, the transfer to type, the movement, the damage. So really I have, and this is just for transformer class, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 mutators or setters, however you want to think of it. Mutator sounds good, sounds better. 4 mutators, and then I think I have as many accessors, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So again, that's going to kind of be the game plan for the transformer class. And then if I want to just keep on rolling here, we could do one of two things. If you guys want to break now, and what I mean by break now, I mean break into groups. Let's see, we have, I think this goes till 12:15, right? Yeah. Okay. So we have till 12:15. So we have less than a half an hour. I don't know if it's worth it to get into our groups or if we should just take today to kind of talk more about this outline stuff. You guys go back over this video, thinking about it. And then on Thursday, we, take like the whole time, break into our groups and get the stuff set up. I think that's probably a better game plan, unless you guys want me to make a poll to see. Would that be fun? Or do you just want to just voice your concern now?
I have a quick question.
All right.
So you said that for the class files that we're allowed to do inline function declarations. So does that mean that we don't need any .cpp files for any of the classes?
I just want us to do it for one. And the one
Oh, just for
specifically,
one.
yeah, the one specifically is for, let's go back here. And there's a meaning to the madness. And that is for this guy. At least this component of your class must be implemented within a separate implementation file. Because, again, I want us to separate the two out, recognize it, because I know, right, inline is obviously way easier because it's like I'm doing double duty. So that's why I only have this one file. And again, I can tell you, because here I don't want to say here's the truth of it. The reality is that if I go online, I might be able to find a similar program like this that does pretty much the same thing, but it's not going to have the implementation of the specification file separated out. So I want us to work through that and to think about it, because that's kind of my red flag if somebody's not separating those out, that you just kind of went online and got it, right? So that's why I'm kind of still requiring that, and I will require it on the midterm, because again, if I go online, I'm just going to get everything together. So yeah, cool. And then the question is well, if everybody does it that way, why don't we do it? Because again, I have to have some way to keep track of what people are doing in here. And this is one way. Okay. So I know that was a long explanation, probably TMI, but yeah. Oh, so Ree's still cool. I don't think at this point it makes sense for us to break into our groups. I can see, I think everyone is really here. This will also give people, if you like went home and don't have the right computer, you don't have anything to work with, you have to get your stuff together for Thursday. What I mean by that is, if you don't have a way to remote into the lab to work on this program, then that's a huge problem. Everybody needs to come to class, and I'll mention this at the end of class. You need to be sure that you're able to remote in, you have a connection in, so you can work on this stuff. If you come to Thursday's class and you don't have this, and you're just like going to talk about what maybe you could do, that's terrible. You got to have something working. If you don't have it on, obviously if you have it on your own system and you have Visual Studio installed, I mean, hey, that's fine. But if you don't have a solution there, you got to figure that out. So you need to email me. Yeah. Okay. Any rate. So let's look at the other guys. Let's look at the other classes and just kind of do a general outline here of what those should look like. So that way we have it. And again, and we'll do the easy one first, right? We'll do the vehicle class first, because then again, like we said, we can do everything all together. Although, these are going to be, so I'm probably going to have pretty much similar stuff here, but all this is really taken care of for me. So what I need to have is, and I never know how to spell vehicle. I think that's it. Like the vehicle type here. And that's different from the type. And then I really only need three things. I need weapon skill. And then for public, because remember that, I mean, the cool thing is like I still have access to all of these guys from this class, it's like just adding to it. So, I mean, it's just like really cool stuff. But for this, if I need specific things, I'm going to need my constructors. And then I'm going to have, well, really just instead of 4 and 4, I'm going to have 3 and 3 for these, right? Really 3 to set those and 3 to modify them is really what it is. And then the animal is really pretty much the same thing, except I'm going to have to implement one additional mutator, and that's going to be for the group. And that's the thing that has to be implemented within the implementation file, ironically. So it's pretty much going to look the same. So again, when you're starting this, I strongly encourage you to start this first, get this working, and then really just kind of do on almost a copy paste like I'm doing. These are going to be similar. Vehicle type, it's obviously going to be animal type. And then it's a little different because they don't have weapons. So they attack and then attack and then group. Good. All right. And then what is really cool, because I think most people would be very, I don't want to say tempted, but, you know, when we were going through and doing, you know, adding in, setting the group type, right? And we set this. Now this will be on the final exam. If I'm setting the group type here, and this is something that's done automatically for me, should this really be public or should it be private? So think about that. If the user doesn't do anything but just get the information, I'm not setting anything, right, for the group. That's done automatically. So my question then is, should that option, meaning that member function to set this, should that be private or should it be public?
Guess private.
Right on. Now the accessor, right, to get it, right, it should be public because who needs it? The who needs it is this guy, right? So to get that, to display it, I'm going to need to get that, that should be public. So the accessor for that, the mutator, no. The mutator, that member function should be private. And here's a really good example of why that should be, because there's nobody else besides the classes that should have access. And what I mean by that, I mean like the transformer class. So again, I'll talk about that, you know, if you guys meet with me, or when you meet with me, and then even in the feedback too, I'll talk a little bit about that. But at any rate, go back to this guy. So now if I do that, I should have my mutator function for group listed here. And again, that's why I wanted to put it in. I want that little piece at least in the implementation file. Okay, and then, you know, again, this is the animal, so it's a little bit more. A couple other things here. That has skill. I don't have skill. I better make sure I'm doing this right. Okay, so then, you know, if I only need to really, I don't want to say mutate, but I only need to mutate 2 of those. So that'll be 2 mutator public functions that are available, right, for those guys. We know that one's going to be private. We know this one's going to be private. And then accessor, we're going to need, we're going to just need the 3 then. Yeah, for each one of those. So that's the general layout. You know, and again, I would go through and I would lay this out now, you know, in the textbook, right? Tony talks about, you know, using the universal modeling language, putting stuff on note cards and things like this to kind of lay it all out. You could do that if you're more of a visual person. if you feel more comfortable. And again, there's examples in the textbook that talk about how to break that apart into like note cards or like at least a flow chart. If you want to meet to talk about that, or if you want to do a little research and look into that, let me know. Maybe I can make a short video on that or something. I don't have anything ready right now, but whatever you need to help you with this, let me know. Because again, on Thursday, we need to hit the floor running. What we don't want to do is wait till the weekend, specifically like Saturday and Sunday, because I know like people work on the weekends. I don't know. I mean, I'll still help you out. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not discouraging it, but if somebody emails me on Sunday, it's kind of like I feel obligated to get back to you on Sunday. But at any rate, I want us to start sooner because I think some people ran out of time. I know people ran out of time for this last assignment that was due last night, Monday. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Everything's there. Everything's there. Now you can go back, even if you want to just lay out all the files and you want to create a project, you want to get them put in there. That's cool. I can see that some of the groups, just because of, and it's fine, you can float away from using your team repository. That's okay. This is the last assignment that I better double check before I make any promises. Oh, how do I get out of here? Back. Okay, because this is mod 2 lab 2, and then from here everything's mod 3. Okay, yeah. So this is the last assignment. This is the last one where it's kind of like this group work, where you work with a partner or two and you submit something. From here on out, you can certainly work in groups if you want. By all means, but one, you're not going to really, for all these assignments, you really can't use Visual Studio. I mean, you can. Yeah, you can use Visual Studio, but you might not want to sync it with your team. So I think if you're moving toward not doing that anyway, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, so that's that. Oh, look, I have a midterm in here. What am I talking about? There's already a midterm made. Hey, look at that. Okay, well, I should have looked at my assignments. I guess I already had that made up, so yeehaw. Oh, isn't that nice? Well, I'm glad somebody put this course together for me. They did all right by me. Oh my gosh, and there's even a final exam in here too. Like, who would have knew? Wow, that looks awful. All right, so it's not really that bad. Just joking. I mean, it's fine. We just haven't talked about like half of it yet. So we'll have to do that. And like I said, that's looking forward, but focus on understanding this, know what you need to do here, talk with me, let's meet, let's figure this stuff out. If one, maybe your partners are MIA, let's just talk about this stuff and, talk. That's what you have a partner for too, is to talk about it, because that's the whole idea. You gotta verbalize some of the stuff. You can't internalize it all in your own head. It just doesn't really work that well. That's why there's like team meetings and stuff so you guys can talk about this stuff. And I mean like team meetings like in a business, right? There's all this discussion about, oh, my meetings, blah, blah, blah. But when you have your team meeting with just like the people that do stuff, that the same stuff as you, those are productive. The big meetings with like your whole organization or something, those are the ones that people fall asleep in, because a lot of the stuff may not be applicable. So we're making it applicable here. You're talking about these programs. Okay, guys. So I think that honestly, that's pretty much it for me. You might not have any questions now. That's okay. Email me if you do as you're thinking about it. You can get together some files, at least figure out with your team members, get some communication back and forth, send each other an email, be like, hey, I'm going to work on laying out a skeleton of these class files. Hey, I'm going to work on laying out the skeleton of the, my source file. That's my main driving program. You can figure out that stuff. At least then you can start on Thursday really putting in the meat and potatoes of your program. So that's it. All right. So then just a quick couple of minutes here, and then we'll end class 5 minutes early or something. A couple of things I want to mention. One of them is with, mentioned this before, and it goes back to the whole reason why you have teams, and that is with the ACM stuff, right? So, it's a student organization. Sounds interesting, but not really for me. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, to have those things, what I mean by things, to have those experiences on your resume that, like, for example, I mentored incoming freshmen. I mentored when you're juniors. I mentored sophomores. That is huge, because then you can talk about, you developed some resources and they were very successful, or, hey, I realized that they weren't really working that well, so I changed them to this. That's golden. That is golden for when you're sitting down in an interview and you're talking to people, or even you're networking with people, right? If I'm talking with people that have a cool job that I might like someday, having that information is golden. So I strongly encourage you, like if you're going to continue on CS, like you really get involved in that, because it's a great opportunity not only for you to beef up your resume, increase a better outcome from networking opportunities that you talk to people that are professionals, but then also helps you understand this a little better too, right? Because you're like teaching it. So I throw that out there because if anything, that's one of probably the most powerful tools here at the university, is having an opportunity like that, and it's something you just don't want to disregard. Anything else for the general good of the consortium here? You guys want to throw out anything? I feel like if we're in class, we don't really get to see, like, how's everybody doing? Is everybody doing all right?
As well as it can be.
Well, as you can be, all right.
They were playing loud music at 11:30 last night. Loving the dorms.
That's why I got my own house.
Yes.
Must be nice. And you have a puppy. Jealous.
Oh, yeah. Doing good, doing good. How am I, Jessica? Jess, you don't want to answer that question.
Love that.
Because I have so many problems. No, I like the tunes. I kick it out. I mean, Jess knows. I mean, her and I were sharing playlists. Yeah, so I mean that's good. Got to take your breaks when you get them. I know for me, I will say this though, that it's about 22 days from now, and it's at the end of the month of Wednesday. I am not going to be available. I'm taking a vacation day, so don't plan on getting any response from me on that day, because I have not played any Minecraft since the summer, and it's got to be like all day. Like I got to play like 12 hours. So the 28th of this month, I know that's not for a while yet, but it's coming up. So I just want to put that out there for everyone. I'm going to send an auto reply on my email that says, do not disturb, important research being conducted. Be lies. All right. So cool, guys. Good deal. So again, don't get overwhelmed by this. It's fine. We will, yes, there it is. That's going to be the auto reply. That'd be awful. But again, don't get overwhelmed by this. You know, we're all in it here together. We'll figure it out. And, you know, you're going to have a nice little program that runs. You want to put some bells and whistles on it. I mean, by all means, do that. And then, you know, don't worry about sweat about the midterm. We'll talk about it. We'll have a review day on that. So cool. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for joining class today. And I'm going to stop recording. And then we will talk.